Hey everyone, welcome to this awesome interview episode of Electronic Cafe. Mark and I have just had the very good fortune to meet the legend that is Mick MacNeil from Simple Minds. Just an amazing conversation, lovely guy. Mate, how funny was he as well?
Yeah, I mean, I knew it was going to be good, but I mean, like you, I mean, we've seen Simple Minds many times. You know, the classic lineup back in the day with Mick in it. You know, it was a real thrill for us because he's just a phenomenal keyboard player. The sound that he had with Simple Minds was amazing. And what a nice guy. What a funny guy and great stories. And
he's a guy you want to meet down a pub, right? And just
definitely. And you know, he was so unassuming about his contribution to the sound. And it's kind of like, wow, it's like, it was...
You not realise?
Yeah, yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing.
Let everyone dive in and see the chat we just had with the fabulous Mick MacNeil, mate.
Exactly. Everybody jump in and have a look at this chat with the brilliant Mick MacNeil, formerly of Simple Minds.
So when I heard I Travel, I was in a club with my mate, our old bass player, actually. I went, what the fuck's this? Just like,
yeah, I heard it in the club and I said, what the fuck's this as well?
Hey everyone, welcome to this fabulous edition of the Electronic Cafe. We're having another EC Pinch Yourself moment as we welcome the fabulous Mick MacNeil, formerly from Simple Minds. Mick, welcome to Electronic Cafe, mate. It's an absolute honour to have you on the show.
Pleasure to be here, Andrew and Mark. Nice to meet you both.
Really, real pleasure, mate. And we're huge fans of your previous work with the Minds, but I was when we were doing some research, going back, you know, to the very beginning. I mean, you're a massive musical family, right? 7 siblings. Is that right?
Yeah, it was really all pushed by my mother. She was shoving us all into music. It was really because her upbringing, they all came from the Western Isles of Scotland, and they never had TVs or anything like that. So it was all about entertaining yourselves. She never got the opportunity to get any music lessons. She insisted that we all did. And other than her trying to turn us into a Celtic Osmonds, which was never going to be, we kind of drifted in and out of various Celtic instruments. I was actually handed an accordion. My brother was handed a drum, and somebody got a bagpipe. You know, it's all like, who's getting what here? And unfortunately, I was landed with this accordion strapped to me. That's kind of how it all started, and it's still rooted in me, that music.
Yeah,
you know? I mean, I think it's quite timeless. I think it's quite an influence. People always refer to Simple Minds as when they grew from early albums into bigger stadium sound, and it all got bombastic and all got all this. And to me, there's a thread of Celtic through my contributions anyway that runs right from album 1 to Street Fighting Years. Yep. And even more so when it gets to Street Fighting Years, I felt there was more Celtic in that than there was in anything else that I'd done.
Yeah, you can hear it very loudly.
When you was growing up and you was playing the accordion, you was in this folk band with your family. As you got older, was there contemporary music that you started to listen to? You started to discover that opened up your horizons on music?
Yeah, I mean, when you were buying records or 7-inch singles for, I don't know,
I remember them.
3 shillings and sixpence, I was buying cheap music from chirpy, cheap to America, you know, all these sort of cheap music things we see that were in the charts, and it was a total rip-off because all it was a kind of single line of notation along the top, and it was 4 shillings. It was all my wages, but it still took you into that area of pop music the way I would have attacked it. You know what I mean? So I mean, I didn't actually cover much of it early doors. Well, obviously, in the 70s, there was a lot of social clubs in Britain, labour clubs. It was a really live was, you could make a lot of money just doing chart stuff. And so we had a kind of cabaret band at one point, but it was never suggested that you actually try and compose your own music and write your own stuff. That never really happened until I joined the band.
Right.
And the only reason that came about, I think, is because I didn't know any of the songs that they did. And the first gig was like next Tuesday, and I'd like 15 songs to learn. And I thought, I'm not going to bother learning all of them. I'll just stick it. I'll find out what key they're in. It's a dawdle, there's 2 or 3 chords. It's punk rock, for crying out loud. Anybody can do that. So I'll kind of bluff my way along and try and be as original as possible.
Wow.
So that's kind of how I dug into that.
Mate, how did you meet Jim and Charlie? How did you guys meet?
I mean, I've been quite documented a little bit. It was really through girlfriends.
Right.
Women are responsible
Enough
for
answer.
everything. my girlfriend knew Charlie's girlfriend.
Right.
And in the cabaret kind of thing, I did enough of it. I'm like 17 years, 18 years old, and I'm just sick of it. And I was still in the band with my brother. And I said, I'm not doing any more of this shit. I'm finished. I was also serving an apprenticeship as an engineer. So I was kind of at that juncture where, I mean, the only reason I hadn't stopped anything up to that point was because my mother had paid for lessons and guilt was overwhelming her.
Sure.
So she couldn't afford those lessons. And I didn't want to break her heart and just chuck it, after all those years. But when I got to the time where I could actually go into the pub and buy a drink legally, I felt I could make that choice.
Wow.
So I'd kind of given up until this girl said, my pal's boyfriend's in this band and I think they're looking for a guy with a synthesizer. So I said, well, I'll introduce us and we'll see how that goes. And that's really how it all came about.
I don't know if this is true, Mick, but I read that apparently when you were, just before you thought the mind started getting some real traction, you weren't aware. I mean, you've been compared to Magazine and early Ultravox, all about, and you've been compared to, but apparently you didn't know much about those bands or have them. And I guess as you started discovering them, did you start feeling like, as this new world opened, it was like being a kid in a candy store?
Kind of, even though I kind of had to pretend I did know them and pretend I liked a lot of it. I think with any music, if you're introduced to it, you don't instantly love it, really. You grow along with the genre and you kind of look at different bands. And Charlie and Jim would be talking about Van der Graaf Generator or something. I'm like, what the hell? That's something I would have fixed in the factory in my apprenticeship. But so I would pretend that I knew all these things, and I didn't even, I didn't listen to it. I didn't have any of those records. Probably the nearest things that I had in our house, they were, apart from old Irish records and rebel songs, and it's a load of rubbish, really. It was probably John Barry soundtrack stuff, which I really liked. I was into all the kind of cinematic sounds and melodies and things like that would draw me in. The actual element of pop music, of being the guy, because a lot of young kids, they really join it to get a bird, right? Let's be honest. You want to be if you're in a band, you're going to pull birds, and pop music culture is the way to go down that road. Yeah. So every 17, 18 years got to be drawn to that, as I was. So I would just bluff it and pretend I didn't like all this other stuff, like Elton John and ABBA and all that. That's rubbish. Secretly, I totally loved it,
The truth is out.
Yeah, I'm coming out of that closet.
Well, mate, I love that, though. It's very honest of you, and it's really cool. Really cool.
When I don't care, there's no one there that even turn around and say, get out of this place. Last night I saw a shooting star, and morning comes, she hides away. A real disgrace.
We mentioned Magazine there, and obviously Magazine, they were produced by John Leckie at the time, and then you did a couple of albums with John Leckie early in your career.
Yeah, I mean, Jim would have pushed that, because I wouldn't have known who produced anything back then, and obviously I didn't know Magazine were. The first time I ever heard Magazine was when we opened up for them. and then they were on after us. So, then I obviously watched all those shows through that tour and grew to really like them and understand them. And the same, I could apply the same to Peter Gabriel. I'm a massive Peter Gabriel fan. I never knew anything of his stuff. And even his very first gig, because when we opened up for him, I thought they were crap. You know, it was a kind of tight wee theatre, and it didn't. And everything was so exposed. You know, his voice was so clean in your face. It was just like in a room with them. And I thought, I want more than that. I want to hear a record. And it, obviously, over the space of 4 or 5 gigs, you immerse yourself in it again, and it takes a whole new life. And that kind of same thing happened with Magazine. You know, I loved it. By the time we got to the end of that tour, obviously I wanted to be Dave Formula, and I wanted to get all the synths that he's got. I'm just looking at other keyboard players, making a shopping list of beer. I don't want to play like them. I'll just copy all the sounds and all the keyboards they use.
I mean, talking of a shopping list, I mean, me and Andy was in bands through the 80s and 90s, and I was the keyboard player. And I've written some of the instruments in your rig down. So talking of that shopping list, you had an ARP Odyssey, the CPC 70 electric piano, Prophet 5, Jupiter 8, Roland Juno 60, Hammond organ, DX7, samplers. I mean, towards the end, your rig, I mean, we saw Simple Minds, we saw those shows.
Yeah.
Your rig at the end and the sound you had was phenomenal.
Well, Jim used to say I was going to bankrupt a band, basically, because it was a band that was buying all that shit, wasn't it? There's a couple of things you've not got right there, Mark. I never had a Prophet 5. I may have hired one at certain points. Really? I never had the ARP was actually a mixer. I thought I was buying a synthesizer, believe it or not. You know, it's like one of those moments you go into Rod Argent's shop in Denmark Street with the record company car sitting waiting outside. That was a toy. That was a kid in a candy store. Oh, I'll take one of them. And the guy's always thinking, there's an endless budget here. You need this, and you need this. And he handed me this ARP, and it had beautiful wee sliders on it, and it just looked like a synth I'd seen on Top of the Pops with people. And I thought, I definitely need that for sure. I didn't even know it was a mixer. So I had this thing where just shoving these wee things. It was quite it wasn't very user friendly for a mixer. You these big faders live on stage in the dark. You turn things up and down. Didn't have, what else did you say there? Something else that didn't have. It's things that I wanted to have.
Did you have a DX7? Because I had a DX7.
Oh yeah, I had a DX7.
I couldn't get on with that at all.
No, I couldn't. I tried. Did you try?
I tried, but it's all on a little screen, and it's not so tangible as like knobs and sliders and stuff. And when I attempted it, obviously the word algorithm, it's the first time I'd ever heard the word algorithm, but I totally understood it right away when I looked at the algorithm on a DX7, because when you turn an ordinary synthesizer and you put some filter up, the consequences are kind of obvious. But as soon as you change one aspect of the algorithm, the whole thing's screwed up way down the line. And 2 moves and you can't get it back again. It's straight back to factory default and start again. Now, I did manage to create a couple of sounds. I thought, that'll do. It was just total luck. Right. Things like there's a track called Jungle Land that they're like, it's supposed to be like a jaggy, sharp, brassy thing, Yeah. It was just a real sharp, waspy sound. And I remember the producer at the time, it may have been Pete Walsh, actually, I think. We were in the townhouse anyway. And next door was a Japanese band, and they had 8 DX7s, right? Looking at this, just a whole look like the DX7 factory next door. Wow. And of course, a lot of the records at the time, Madonna, everything had that bass sound, it just washed over the whole sound of that era. I thought the DX7. But what I did like most of all about it, the actual control of the keyboard, I thought it was a fantastic keyboard. I would have just kept it just for the playing aspect of it. It's that flat and cut on top of the piano, really comfortable. It's a solid wee thing. You could play it really comfortably without hitting wrong notes all the time.
Yeah, I love it.
I'd do a lot.
With your rig, did you control much of it like on stage, the sound on stage, or was that you, or did you have people side of stage balancing it?
With a fantastic big roadie guy who was with us for years, Big Dougie. He built a pedal board fading system. It was just a VCA mixer, a little Yamaha VCA mixer, and he put volume pedals on the outputs of the mixer. So I'd plug everything into this mini mixer and control it with my feet. That's ultimately how I had to end up sitting down. Even though sitting down, I preferred it later on because you get a nice piano position.
Yeah.
Every keyboard's designed for you to sit down. The legs were never tall enough. Otherwise, I'd have wanted the keyboard to be up here to play. But no, it was just this big genius that I loved dearly that done all that for me. And I would do a rough mix of it. I would never trust the sound guy to mix your keyboards. Would you ever do that, Mark? Like, you could actually trust these people.
Well, I'll be honest. I didn't have as much as you, so
yeah.
But I know what you mean. Yeah, it's nice to be able to control it from where you are rather than relying on something else. Yeah.
Oh, totally. The worst thing they could do is put you in mono. That was the death of all sound guys for me to say, I'll just pan the keyboards at all a wee bit to the left. And the guitar, I'm like, no, you won't. No, I go wide. You know, I'll give them some sort of bullshit. If you put that in mono, it's going to mess up the low end. You're going to screw it up. Oh, okay, they go all grumpy and panning the faders all angrily wide.
Mate, look, I won't lie. I mean, the early Simple Minds stuff that you're involved with, I mean, I remember hearing, like, I Travel the first time in a club. That's why I heard you. It's the first track I heard of yours. I was like, I just fell in love, and Mark did as well. Both fell in love with the early stuff. To this day, this is my two favourite sons. I just absolutely love this. But with all the stuff you've done, have you got a favourite? Because I know you've worked on a lot of albums. Is there one in particular? Because they're my two, but I'd love to know if you've got one that really...
Yeah, no, I mean, those are really special, Andrew, because obviously we were searching as much as anybody to get... We never knew the outcome that was going to be of anything after Life in a Day, basically. Really real. And then obviously that was a straight on a Virgin, and we had Steve Hillifield Spacey. It was like the planets were gradually aligning to reach up to the pinnacle of New Gold Dream, is the way a lot of people saw it. I don't really see it like that. New Gold Dream did kind of stumble its way together with a lot of premeditated stuff.
Yeah.
But as far as being so happy with the outcome, I was really ecstatic about the outcome with all of those tracks. And that's why we couldn't dump half of them. And that's why it became like a 2-album thing. We just didn't have the heart. We liked it all so much. We couldn't just lose it all, you know.
They get played at least once a year for the last 40 years. I just absolutely. Probably top 20 albums of all time, I reckon. I just love it.
Yeah, there's definitely a searching for an identity in there, and you know, we were as naive as the listener hearing it for the first time. You know, it was a great kind of moment. That.
Yeah. No, mate, amazing stuff. So when I heard I Travel, I was in a club with my mate, our old bass player, actually. I went, what the fuck's this? Just like,
I heard it in the club and I said, what the fuck's this as well? Because that's you breaking the boundary then, you know.
Yeah, mate.
You'd be in the van and maybe a radio, you'd hope it, the radio one, and you hear it come, well, listen, we're on the radio. You know, it was that kind of feeling, then you think, oh shit, we're on the radio. But if you're sitting in a club and it comes belting out, you're like, we're on the dance floor.
I was straight on the dance floor and I heard that. I was like, what's this? I'm just dancing. It's brilliant.
What you guys were doing, and certainly your keyboards, Mick, they were so distinctive. I mean, like, you know, I Travel or The American or Love Song, or, you know, those keyboard lines are just so brilliant in an era when there was a lot of great music around. I mean, your contribution to Simple Minds from the early album right up to Street Fighting years was massive. I mean, was there a point where you started to think, oh shit, this is really happening now? I mean, we
arrived.
What was the point where you actually thought, you know, I'm feeling I'm comfortable with this? I
never detached myself my contribution individually to look at it separately. I think when Andrew was talking about being that element, when you hear it in the club, you hear it on the radio, you think this is going to kick in. But there was never, I don't feel there was any point, there was really any doubt. I mean, I've heard Jim and Charlie talk about after Arista dropped, says we've done the 3 albums with John and we were in debt and blah, blah. And it makes it sound like it was all kind of going to fizzle out and Virgin came in and saved the day and Richard Branson bought the debt. I never saw any of that. I didn't see it feel any doubt at all that we weren't going to be or go on and be successful. There was always the niggling thing that because I'd come out of a factory shop floor with a boiler suit, that's where I could head up at any moment and there, but by the grace of God, I will return. You know, there was never any of that kind of feeling. It was always just, we're a good band. We're hitting it live every single time. We don't need a record company. We don't even need a fucking record. We just need to get out and play. And it was covering it. It was covering enough confidence to give you that kind of swagger of, we've got this, you know what I mean? So I don't think I ever lost the kind of faith in the band being successful. Whether there's an actual turn point, I suppose you've got to kind of point to Promise You a Miracle or getting on top of the pops, or, you know, because even getting on national television, because right at the outset, we're on a Grey Whistle test in 79, you know, and we're one album in and we're charted. Obviously, a lot of people could have looked at that and thought, oh, we've cracked it, we've made it. But that all stumbled in so quickly and so haphazard, almost like a fluke. We had to treat it as such. We didn't treat that as a clicked up milestone. You know, it was too early for them to treat it like that. Whereas Top of the Pops was definitely a milestone. It was like we're in there with Paul Young and I was going to say Alvin Stardust there.
The black leather glove. Black leather glove on the night like that. What was that all about?
Yeah. You know what I mean? You're suddenly mingling with pop stars, the real pop stars.
Yeah.
As love takes our train, summer breeze and brilliant light. Only love she feels, she controls all love sails to a new life. Promise you a miracle.
The New Gold Dream is such a beautiful record. I mean, that kind of, we remember being fans at the time, and like Promise You a Miracle and 100 and 100 and Somewhere in Summertime, and the level of production just gave it just this kind of really this beautiful sonic sheen, which like everybody fell in love with.
Yeah, it did. I know, and I remember Pete Walsh. I've not actually spoke much to Pete Walsh over the years. I know the boys have gone back and used them again. I would like to talk to Pete actually, because I've got a different view on the way the drums, because obviously Mel came at that point and Mike it was kind of awkward. I even talked to Mel on our wee stream a couple of weeks ago, and he made comments about when he came into the drums. He's just coming as a session guy, he doesn't know anybody. He's a pro, he does his thing. The original band drummer is sitting in the drum booth with him. You know, it must have been like looking at this other drummer, you're playing the songs that he's supposed to be on, and at the end of the take, Mike starts clapping, and you're like, how would you deal with that?
That's tough, isn't it?
And then there was all this stuff about how loud. I always felt the bass drum was dead loud on You Go Dream and most of the tracks. In fact, the bass drum, even at the day, and I was convinced, because Pete had brought in Mel, I was convinced that the reason he's pushing that bass drum up is to give it this sense of power. And I'm thinking, and I never said it out loud because I would be too kind of shy and too insecure to say, why don't you just push Mike's bass drum up loud? Because we'd already recorded Mike's on the same tracks. If that's the reason, I want to know why this guy has got the power and this drummer hasn't. You know, if it's just a case of turning that bass drum up, let me hear his bass drum louder. I just didn't say that, but then I heard an interview with Pete Walsh about a couple of years ago saying, I can't believe the volume of that bass drum.
Somewhere there's something that 1 million eyes can't see, and somewhere there's someone who can't see what I can see. So
Is it Urban Myth? So Don't You Forget About Me. Is it Keith Forsey who wrote it?
Yeah.
You guys sit in it for months and weren't interested, or was that just Urban?
Yeah.
Is it true?
No, we did. No, it is true. Because I remember it was, I mean, there's various stories. Everybody's got their own kind of story in that one. But
Right.
it was Charlie and I was on a plane to LA, and Keith Forsey was sat in some row, and he came up to us on the plane, and we were pissed, right? We were, as we do. I've got some good stories. I remember Charlie and I kind of were really, really close pals. And one trip, I'm just going to inject this one. We're going to, Bruce Finlay, our manager, says, let's go to New York for some, I can't remember what, it's just a weekend or a week's trip, a short trip. You could do that back then. You could jump on a plane and go. And as soon as you go on the plane, 3 glasses of red wine, right? And Charlie's got white trousers and a white t-shirt on with no even hand luggage. We're covered in red wine. And he was left with this same gear until we got back in Glasgow, like a week later. It was the same kind of scenario. We're in this plane in LA, getting well hammered. We sometimes played chess as well. That was we're trying to be sophisticated with a wee portal chess set. And that was sometimes end up in a scrap as well. Anyway, this guy comes up, gives the tape to us and tells us he's a massive fan of the band and tells us about this song and it's going to be in a soundtrack. And bear in mind, at that time, it was every movie had a song on it for a soundtrack. It could be any bullshitter. We didn't know the guy. He never really explained. He probably does explain. We're probably too hammered to realise it. Anyway, I stuck it in my pocket and we did have a quick listen to it, but we were so kind of up our own arses. Why should we take somebody else's song? We write great songs.
You write great songs, yeah.
Yeah, we're the bee's knees, So we put it on the wee Walkman or something for 10 minutes. You check it out. Yeah, no, that's rubbish. I stuck it in my bag and forgot about it. And it was like weeks and weeks later when obviously the record company got in touch with management. Did you get the song? What song, like what song are you talking about? And then Jim's like, did a guy give you a song, a tape on a plane? So all right, all that, and they're taking through because then we had big bags with more cassettes in our bag than clothes,
Yeah,
It was all just cassettes. So we're digging through all the tapes. I think this is it. We better listen to it, So we listened to it, but it's still all agreed that we weren't going to do it. We still had that swagger of we're better than this. Why didn't they use one of our songs? We'd love to use this guy's song. Anyway, we were talked into doing it and saying, convinced us that this is going to really go and they're getting behind it, blah, blah. If you're making a big mistake, if you don't do it, hey, don't you do this?
It did right, didn't it?
Well, it certainly worked. I mean, it did change everything.
Yeah,
totally. When it created American charts, obviously different from the UK and where everyone else was a really slow creeper. And you're watching this thing slowly jumping up in stages, right, all the way up. And you're like, geez, I can't believe that's gone all the way. And I'm sitting in a pub in Glasgow and it's number one. I'm thinking, what the hell? I should be in New York.
Yeah, celebrating.
yeah, should be on MTV or something like that.
Absolutely.
There's a version of it that Billy Idol done a version of it as well, isn't it?
Yeah, because there was all these talks about different people doing it.
It's not a touch on your version.
I'm wondering if he done that before or after we done ours. I don't know when that was actually done because I know that he was asked to do it and knocked it back or couldn't do it or something like that.
Definitely.
But I mean, for me, I know Jim and Charlie would probably differ that the fact that they've got to do that every gig now. If that same guy in the plane gave me that tape and said to me, listen, Mick, you play this, you're going to have a big hit, you're going to have to play every gig for the rest of your life. That would be enough. I think I'd have chucked it in the toilet. Do you know that kind of feeling when you've got the shackle of, don't you forget about me.
You got to play it.
And then that ringing on ending with la, 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 it just goes on just a wee bit too long, By the time you get to the end of the tour, you just want to kind of pull the plug on the audience.
It was recorded really quick as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, no, because we were actually flying out somewhere that same day or the following day, and we couldn't even have us the whole day in the studio, I don't think. I remember just being in there, kind of a couple of takes through it and a couple of overdubs, and that was my bit done, you know.
Wow.
And everybody was the same. We did a kind of live band run through and felt that sounds great, that sounds really good. I always remember hearing the mix from the first time back again. I thought, gosh, that Jim sounded better on the recording than I remember him in the headphones. And it sounded like, I don't know, I actually need to check this. And I've thought about this before, whether it was very speeded, because the snare was definitely a snappier, brighter, higher pitched than I remember Mel's. The whole thing was really snappily up. That put it into that commercial world, I feel. The actual mix of it.
Yeah. Wow.
Great place and say goodbye. You take a walk, take another ride. Rolling in town's ambition in motion. Rolling in town's
So Mick, from your vantage point at the back of the stage with your rig and everything, I mean, you stood behind you and Charlie. You saw some massive shows, Verona, Live Aid.
Just a few.
Yeah.
Yeah, some really big shows. What was your favourite show at that time? What?